All right. Well, good morning, good afternoon to everybody who has joined us today. You are here with the Risk and Safety Solutions Chemical Inventory Best Practices webinar. I hope that everyone's excited to learn some good tips and tricks that we have accumulated over the years. I'm just going to briefly go over the structure of how this is going to go. We do have a panel here today. You should see them on the video there. We're going to start with introductions and a little bit more about, why are we talking about this topic now? Why are we Risk and Safety Solutions providing you this information? And, how can we help you, basically? And then also we're going to have question time at the end. We're going to let you can go ahead and raise your hand on the little, Zoom panel there, or you can also drop the question in the chat, and then we'll do some closing and next steps. I am going to ask you to give me maybe 5 minutes right before the questions to go ahead and give you some more information about what we have done as far as chemical inventory, and maybe there's an opportunity for us to help you. And so if that's okay, I will go ahead and do that before the question section. All right. A few things to note. So we are here for you. Do not hesitate to ask any questions related to chemical inventory best practices or chemical inventory practices in general. It's likely that somebody else in this group, there's about 70 people here, has the same question that you do. And there's no, as I always say, there's no dumb question. We have people that are experienced all the way through people who have never even implemented or used a chemical inventory system. So all questions are good questions. Our lovely team here, Ange is behind the Risk and Safety Solutions there. She is going to have everybody muted by default. This is just to save anyone the embarrassment of random background noise. So please raise your hand or drop it in the chat. Like I said, that covers bullet 2 as well. And we're going to try to get through as many as possible. We want to kind of cut off around, 40, 45 minutes, give plenty of time for questions. But in the past, we have run out of time. We don't want to go over the hour, but we will definitely follow up with additional questions. We have everybody's registration information, and so we'll follow up with both the survey and any additional answers that we can. And then also, although we have years of experience, I think I was doing the math, about 60 years total in this panel as far as working with folks on chemical inventories and implementing software. However, you should always use your best discretion and judgment when implementing safety practices at your organization. All right, so we'll start with introductions. I'll start because I'm talking. I probably should have started with that in the beginning, but I'm Diana Cox. I'm the Associate Director for Risk and Safety Solutions. I have been with this organization for just over about 13 years now. I'll turn it over to Russ Vernon.
Hi, I'm Russ. I have been with Risk and Safety Solutions for about 6.5 years, I think. Been with University of California for more than 30 years, and I'm a chemist, so I have lots of opinions about chemical inventory systems. Guess we'll go to Stephen.
Thanks, Russ. Hi, everyone. My name's Stephen Roper. I'm a customer engagement specialist here at Risk and Safety, and I've been with RSS for about, similar to Russ, about 6.5 years.
And that leaves me. My name is Tom Patterson. Good morning or good afternoon, everyone. I've been with Risk and Safety for about to be full 8 years, and working specifically implementing the chemical inventory for about 4 of those 8.
All right, thank you, Pam, for the introduction. Just so everybody knows, too, the folks that are participating in this webinar, I've looked at the list. It's a handful of existing customers, some brand new people who we haven't had an opportunity to work with, and some folks have been doing this for a while as well. So a good mix of everyone, and thank you for joining us. So why this? Why are we talking about chemical best practices, chemical inventory best practices? And the truth is, employers are required to maintain a list of the hazardous chemicals in a workplace, and many folks that we've been talking to have been looking to upgrade, whether that's to come out of a spreadsheet or a decentralized kind of management system, or have a legacy system, or perhaps an in-house system that they've built that's no longer supported, or they have a vendor solution that is not meeting their needs from a reporting or compliance standpoint. And having an accurate chemical inventory system, I think you all probably know this, but it can reduce workplace injuries and minimize risks. The goal is always to keep people safe, keep people going home at the end of the day. So it doesn't matter if you're starting from scratch, or you have a software that you like, or you're considering a different vendor. We're just here to share some of the things that we've learned in working with folks over the years, and share them with you so that if you're going to implement a new process or a new system, it's not quite so daunting. And why now? So now, of course, there's lots of different automated systems. A lot of folks are going from, like I said, spreadsheets, paper-based or electronic paper-based in a sense, products to a more streamlined process. And the reason behind that, of course, is there's just more of them now. There's more vendor products, there's free versions, there's a whole bunch of different ways that you can get the data you need quicker through these centralized and streamlined processes. And of course, our whole goal is to improve your efficiency, have efficient practices, get you the data you need quickly. Same with the other automated systems out there. So I put it's a no-brainer, right? Why us? So we at Risk and Safety Solutions, for those that don't know, I'll give you the very short little elevator pitch here. We are actually part of the University of California system. So 10 campuses, 5 medical centers, and we have been building our own chemical inventory system for the past 7-8 years now at this point. And as part of that, we have implemented it at the campuses. We also offered externally to other higher education, hospitals, pharmacies, you name it. So we have years of experience implementing across a broad kind of industry, right? We've worked with thousands of research labs. We have gotten a lot of different questions. I'm sure there's some questions we haven't gotten yet, but we definitely have a wealth of knowledge, I think, that we wanted to share with you just to help you be more successful with implementing your own chemical inventory system or upgrading a process that you may have. So just a little brief part here. This is about Risk and Safety Solutions. Well, I just mentioned what we are, but we do have a mobile and a platform as well that has our chemical inventory system that I'll be talking about right after we get through some of these questions. So first question I'm going to ask, actually, we're going to go over to Russ, and let me get to the right slide here. There we go. Go to Russ. But I think the first thing when you're talking about a chemical inventory system, before we jump into the FAQs, the frequently asked questions that we get, it always comes back to, what quantities do you want to track? And I think, Russ, could you expand a little bit on the different uses for a chemical inventory system and why that might impact your quantities?
You bet. No problem. So when you think about why you want to have a track of your inventory, there are a variety of reasons. One is for compliance with fire code, or just so you know where your stuff is, how much stuff do I have, where is it located? You might be tracking inventory based upon the environmental compliance requirements. You have to report how much you put up through the exhaust system or put down through the hazardous waste system. There are requirements there. And then you also might be tracking your inventory for OSHA or Cal-OSHA, occupational safety and health reasons. There are limits on what people can use. There are requirements about, what documentation needs to go along with that. And all these are good reasons to have a chemical inventory system. In California, if you're doing it for fire code requirements, it's clear that you have to track any amount of a chemical, the hazard characteristic that is pyrophoric, a water reactive, a potentially explosive compound, acutely toxic, peroxide forming, a strong corrosive, strong oxidizer, or strong reducing. Those you need to track in any amounts. Certainly the extremely hazardous substances that the EPA pulls out, those are ones that are required at any amounts. You also want to track things that are regulated carcinogens or reproductive hazards. So that, again, you want to know where all those are on your campus or in your laboratory. You also have to track any amount of a compressed gas. And then you start looking at what else you need to track. Well, solids, you need to track 250 grams or more of solids, or 150 mils or more of a liquid, in the container that's that size. On a practical sense, when considering, your inventory, if it's not extremely hazardous, highly toxic, explosive, those kinds of things, you have to figure out what it is that people can use and how they'll track things. And so some campuses settle in on 5 mils or 5 grams as a kind of a de minimis amount. So if somebody has material that's not really hazardous, like enzymes or whatever, and it's in the microgram range, then you don't have to track it because the firefighters coming in to fight a fire are not going to care. That's already going to be burned up. So when you start looking at what you want to track, it's important to think about, what's the end purpose? What's your goal at the end? And that will help you identify what it is you need to track at the beginning. I think you want to go back to you, Diana, don't you?
Okay, great. Thank you, Russ. So another question we get when working with folks, whether they're, again, trying to clean up their current inventory or implement a new system, or just want to get their data right. The question is, do we want to import your inventory or start completely from scratch? And Tom has had many experiences with folks, and I'm going to turn over to Tom to go ahead and answer that question.
Yeah, I think it really does depend on what your objectives are in using the system. So if you're switching over, or you need to very quickly get things into the system for whatever reason, it could be there's a contract ending with the system, or there's an urgent need, right? Doing an import, we do offer an Excel import feature that can very quickly get lots, like hundreds and hundreds, even thousands of containers in with just kind of minimal effort, I'll call it. But you also, maybe you need to try to think about how accurate is that data that you're putting in. So if you trust your spreadsheets that you're trying to put in, that could be a good option. The other option, though, is let's say there's not an urgent need and you want to get the most accurate inventory that you can get. That's when we really do recommend kind of adding them in one by one, or I'll call it manually, just because it's not a computer, looking at your Excel file that you import in. That's going to get you the most accurate data, right? So if someone picks up a bottle, looks at what it is, searches for it, adds it in, hit save, you're done, you move on to the next thing, which does speed up over time. Although more and more, I do see that there's kind of a hybrid approach. So there might be some folks that want to test out, or maybe for just the larger inventories, they want to do an import for their couple thousand containers. And then for those things that we can't match, because it does require a single pass number, they can go in and clean up by hand after the fact. Thank you.
Yeah. And then Russ, I don't know if so Russ was the EHS director at UC Riverside when they switched over from a previous system to our current system. I don't know if you want to add anything to that experience, Russ, data quality wise or anything.
Sure. So we'd actually done inventories on the campus about every 10 years, having teams go out and do it. And this time when we added it to the RSS software, we started with teams of 2 undergraduates that would track and barcode all the containers, barcode the locations, and enter the inventory for the faculty instead of making them do it. It gave us an opportunity to find stuff that was inherently waste-like, and we found a lot. When we compared the inventory before we did it ourselves and after, the data that was in our system was about 70% wrong. That we had some labs that had just been adding the same inventory over and over again. So they had like 15 years worth of the same inventory just multiplied, and many labs just didn't add any inventory at all. So it made it so that the data was a lot more accurate. We had about 80,000 containers at Riverside, and we completed the activity over the course of about 10 months.
Thank you, Russ. Next question, we're going to go back to you, Russ. And if you could speak a little bit, and of course, I think some of the other team members are going to chime in on this too, but we had a lot of questions around barcoding, right? Should we barcode? What kind of barcodes? But first question is just, what are the benefits of barcoding versus not?
The 2 benefits are I can find it and that it is easy to reconcile. So if I have a barcode in every container, and one on the sublocation. A barcode in this case includes a RFID tag. So this is the way they come. You fold them up and stick them on a container. I can both access the data just with my cell phone. I can scan the 2D barcode. I can access it with an RFID reader, so I can find out all the containers in a sublocation or a cabinet. And it's really easy to say, is this data accurate? And it's also quite easy to update it. And go from what you had last month, what you have this month. The huge advantage, in my opinion, is doing the RFID reconciliation at the laboratory level with a RFID scanner. It makes life so much easier. Stephen's got a great YouTube video of showing us what it takes to do it with a barcode scanner as opposed to a RFID scanner. And we can do with our labels, you can do it both ways. You can also do it by using an Excel spreadsheet and writing them down. When you do it that way, you'll find there's a creative number of ways to spell the word hydrogen. You don't ever have to type in hydrogen and pick the right spelling in our system. You can start off lots of ways to get the right chemicals in the system. And then you've got a spreadsheet and somebody's got to go remember to go look for it there, add in where it is on the location, mark it off when it's deleted. Whereas if you use barcodes, you can just pull the barcode off and stick it on a tablet and then on a pad. And then once a week, you can go through and delete all the ones that are on the pad and have a fresh and accurate system. It's mostly important for larger laboratories that have lots of people working because stuff comes and goes all the time. And if you can get it into a routine, you'll find that it'll save time and money because you'll be able to find your stuff and you won't be wasting extra money by buying extra containers. I think, Tom, did you want to talk about what it's like to barcode stuff or about the barcodes?
Just to kind of add on, because I have heard a question a lot from customers when I'm on site is kind of like, why, or why did we have our own made up, right? And from our experiences, not all the manufacturers' barcodes on the actual bottle were unique across all manufacturers, right? And so that kind of helps contribute to the decision for us to get these made with the RFID tags built in there.
Yeah, and I think going back to Marty's question, hi Marty, from Noah there, I think Russ, you answered it, but we do recommend, people always say, which ones would you use, right? And we recommend the RFID. It does have the QR code, kind of the 2D barcode as well. And the reason being is the RFID, the technology continues to improve, the cost continues to come down. But we're talking, you can reconcile your chemicals, so see what is accurate and what is not accurate within minutes versus an experiment that was done or a pilot that was done by one of our clients. It took for an average large lab about 2 weeks manually, a couple days using the 2D barcode, and then literally less than a few hours using the RFID. So as that we watch the technology, right? We're all about innovation and trying to stay on that cutting edge. And so as we see the technology improving, we try to stay up on that, and it just saves more time. If you do the math, I mean, it's millions if you're thinking of hundreds of labs and 2 weeks, saving 2 weeks at time. So we do recommend the RFID, but it does have both, so people can use the scanner, the phone, to look up the information, as Russ was saying too.
Not only does it have it, it's got actually a human readable barcode on it too, so you can read it yourself. The other big advantage of RFID is that depending on the scanner you get, when you identify what bottle you're looking for, you can literally walk around the lab having it ping where that container is. And the closer you get to the container, the more rapidly it pings. And I'm sure that technology is going to improve over time too, so it'll be easier to find where the container is in the room.
So Joseph Murray had a good question. I was going to save questions to the end, but since it's relevant to the barcoding, the question is, Russ, how do we deal with removing items from the database once the chemical has been used up and that's been thrown away, right? And that's where that barcode can come in handy again. Does Tom or Stephen, anyone want to take that one?
Yeah, I can take it. So kind of the best way of using these, right, is once something has barcodes in the system, you search for it and you find, oh, you know what, we had 2 liters of acetone or ethanol, whatever it is, and that's now gone. You have a unique identifier for that specific container. So if you got 10 of them, you know exactly which one is empty, that you can go in. I've seen people plug in even QR scanners into their computers and like scan it on the web version, or on our mobile app, you can use the camera and hit the little scan button in the top right to just pull up that specific bottle, hit the 3 dots and hit the remove.
Yeah.
So it does make
simple.
Yeah, super simple and easy to find that specific container that you're looking for. The hard part is to actually remind people that they need to go in and remove things when they're done with them. And I think we might actually address that just a little bit later for another best practice.
All right, great question. Thank you everyone for participating. So the next question is going to go over to you, Stephen, and it's okay. So Russ touched on it, but what is the best way to barcode thousands of chemicals?
I think you saved the most difficult question for me. Yeah, that's one we get asked. Like again, we've kind of touched on that is the biggest time sink. It's going to take a lot of man hours, like Russ said. He did at Riverside to barcode those. Usually, sort of from a holistic level. One of the first questions I like to ask anyone who's about to embark on this, who's kind of responsible? Is it you hoping that the folks in the lab are going to be barcoding their own containers, or in some cases we've seen the folks in environmental health and safety take on that onus and kind of do it for the lab members. So there's kind of a couple of different approaches, and I would say over the sort of 6-7+ years that we've been doing this, one of the biggest takeaways in whatever system you decide to go with, invest in a solution that is going to bring value to everyone who touches it, everyone who uses, the lab members, the PIs, the folks in EH&S. So again, that's probably one of the biggest takeaways, people who are actually using the system, and that's got to bring value to everyone. And then kind of moving on from that, again, just from experience, we often ask folks on a campus or what institution, wherever it may be, is there a lab or an audience that you know are going to kind of buy into this new solution? I like to refer to them as sort of product champions. So the folks are really going to embrace this system, get their containers barcoded, and then long term have a good experience, and then in the future, like encourage others to use the system and kind of have the same experience. Another good tip, again, I've seen it, pizza or some other culinary delights usually encourage people to get together to do something like this. So
Could you talk a little bit about the partner method too?
Sure, yeah. So yeah, getting back to the task in hand, the initial question was how do we do it? Right? How do we get those barcodes? So the best approach we've seen is getting that mobile application, leveraging that camera functionality. Some of the folks who worked with have been fortunate enough to purchase maybe some sort of mobile device or for the lab, so they can dedicate that device to barcoding. Again, not everyone's in that fortunate position, but most folks in the labs these days have some kind of device. And over the many implementations, again, Diana just mentioned that what we refer to as like the partner method. So the best way we've seen is working in teams of 2. One of those folks has got gloves, PPE, or the required PPE on, and the other person's handling the device. So just looking up the chemical, scanning that barcode, by the person with gloves, etc., PPE is looking at the chemical, identifying the chemical, and sticking the actual barcode on the container. And again, looking over the experience we've had, on average, that method takes about a minute. You can get 2 containers in the system. And again, like I think Tom touched on, over time, get used to the system, that can even get faster than that. So kind of that's just our most recommended approach.
All right, thank you. And this is a Tom question. Kicking it back to you, Tom. If we have a chemical in the lab that you use a lot, how do we recommend people make it so they don't have to barcode a new container every time?
Yeah, I get this question a lot because there might be like some type of solution that you go through a lot of it, each week, or it's constantly coming and going. What we found, I mean, it is up to your discretion on how you want to be, on how precise you want to be, right? But what I've seen is that most groups will take maybe just the average amount that they'll have. So if they have, a couple bottles coming and going every week of a specific chemical, try to find the happy average and keep that in your inventory. And you might not be, if this one's physically coming and going every week, maybe you don't put the barcodes on there. Maybe you have them on a separate area. Or you might choose not to use barcodes if it's something with super high velocity. It doesn't make sense, but you want to at least have them added in your inventory so that at any given time, if there needs to be a report pulled, on average, we've got 10 liters of 200 proof ethanol. But in reality, you might have a little bit less, maybe a little bit more, but at least you get kind of what you gauge as accurate average.
Okay, thank you, Tom. And Sohaila, nice to see you on here. I see that you've raised your hand. If I can, Ange, can you help me unmute?
He's unmuted.
Go ahead and ask your question.
Do we also take care of dilutions? Should we barcode the dilutions of sulfuric acid?
All right, great
That's a-
question. Panel?
Yeah, that's a good question. I can start this off and maybe Russ or Stephen, please jump in. What I tend to see is most people only adding in their like parent containers and not adding in secondary containers. But Russ or Stephen, do you have experience or other thoughts on that?
Yeah, it all depends, is the answer to the question. If you're doing it for fire code compliance, then you need to talk to your authority having jurisdiction to see what they require. It depends on how dilute it is. I mean, is it so dilute that it's no longer extremely hazardous? What we do find is a lot of stockrooms, undergraduate stockrooms, for example, will track every container. They'll track it they'll track the amount in the bottles. And they do it in a way so they can make sure they know what's going on. Most research facilities track just what they purchase from somebody, and if they dilute it, that's just on their individual shelf or in their individual fume hood, and those are less likely to be tracked, but properly labeled so you know what's in it.
All right, I hope that answered that question. Next question we have here, and this is of course the million-dollar question, I think, is how do we maintain quality data? Because even if you start from scratch or you go through this whole process where you're redoing everything, how do we get people to continue to update the system? And I think this is all panelists here. Go ahead and start with Russ though.
So the only way that you're going to have an accurate chemical inventory system is to have the people actually using the chemicals to be able to keep the system up. Unless you're as rich as the national labs, and even those can't afford to have, an industrial hygienist for every person working that keep track of what they're doing. You need the person that's going to, get the cup of sugar to bake the cake out, to be able to mark down, I took out a cup of sugar, or to know when the container's empty and to reorder a new one. So the system has to have benefits to the end user. If I start out with an Excel spreadsheet, the only benefit I have is I know I've got it, or I kind of think I've got it, or maybe I had it back when somebody wrote the list. And the benefit of a system that tells you what it is, where it is, what the hazards are, you can even connect it to documents about how to use it safely. That's an inherent benefit to the end user, because I don't want to get hurt. I'm using the chemicals and I want to make sure that I use them safely. So as long as the persons using the system have a vested interest in making sure that it works right, you will be well invested in having a system you can use for reporting on the back end by EH&S. No one ever has a perfect system. I mean, we've certainly discussed it. You can get pretty esoteric at the university talking about ways to make perfect systems. But there's a certain amount of, what's good enough for you. Is it 90% accurate? Is it 110% accurate? I mean, what is the accuracy level you shoot for? And then that's how much effort you put into doing it. And then what's your reconciliation process? How do you know? How often do you go back and verify that things are right? What do you do for laboratories where they aren't? So there's lots of nuance involved, but it's got to work for the people actually using the system, or it's not going to work.
And then Tom, did you want to chime in at all, or you?
Yeah, the way I think of it is you've got your physical, what's in the space there, and then you've got your online virtual, and the struggle is to try to keep those in as most sync as possible, right? So just trying to build it in habits or even some procedures in that lab or workspace for if you're pulling stuff off, make sure you're logged in, whether it's on a phone or a tablet or a computer, to just keep it updated as soon as you do something with it. That's generally what I try to remind folks, because ultimately you want to add things in and remove them when they're done. That's probably the most important that I've heard people that they really try to care about. And of course, a lot of other stuff like reporting is a nice extra. Typically, EH&S is going to try to drive usage to be able to get those things very easily. And that also comes into how we built our system, was to try to make it as easy as possible. You know, if you purchased it or if you're using it, the mobile app's a free download, so you don't have to pay extra or think about it. Of course, we recommend barcodes, but if it's not something that's going to work for your process, maybe that's something you consider. I don't know. So.
Yeah, just to add to that, I think a lot of folks say, oh, well, we're going to rely on reconciliation at the end of the year, right? But again, the safest practice is to keep it updated as we go, because those hazards are going to be known and reportable on. And so I think also the problem with waiting till the end of the year to reconcile is sometimes that doesn't happen. Sometimes other bigger, pandemics or something else occurs, or whatever the fires of the day. And so, we all have the best intentions to like clean our garage, right? But it just keeps getting put off. And so, reconciliation is sort of like, equivalent at times. Sometimes you want to do it, best intentions, but the resources and the time just are focused somewhere else. So if you build in those good habits and people, can use the app and quickly remove it, like Joseph had said, or quickly, transfer it to Tom if he wants to borrow it. So I always know where it is. It's just kind of ingrained in the culture of those labs. And that's what we really try to encourage folks, whether it's our product or someone else's, just get in the habit of keeping it updated, because that is the ultimate safest thing and also the most compliant, right? All right, that was our series of questions. We got through about 30 minutes worth, but I am going to go ahead and share my screen because I told you I was going to give you a little bit of a pitch here. I'm just actually sharing our website. So go to riskandsafety.com. We have built a chemical inventory system. The history is that we had a third-party system here at UC, and the truth is the interface just wasn't easy for folks. It wasn't easy for them to figure out how to remove and add stuff. And so, we were asked as kind of the central IT organization who does software development, can you build a system people will use? So the best way to do that is to actually work with the users, right? So we worked really closely with chemistry faculty. We know they have large labs, they have high throughput, lots of different chemicals. And so we worked really closely with them to design what is now our chemical management system. It's got procurement integration, inventory management, hazard reporting, CFATs, maximum allowable quantities. It's this very comprehensive sort of chemical management system, door hazard signs, but it's all modular too. And again, our main goal when we built this was, okay, how can we get folks to use it? Because we want good data and we don't want people to, groan when we come in and say, we're going to introduce this new system. Doesn't mean that everybody doesn't, everybody loves having a new inventory system, but we've managed to sort of bridge that gap and really get folks to adopt it and to use it and to be excited about it. Going back to what Stephen said, there's usually a pilot group, someone on your campus who's willing to adopt new technology. And that is really your champions, right? Those are the folks that can bring excitement to this and help you get, better data. Because like I said, at the end of the day, you want to be able to know where your hazards are and what people are working with and help them be more safe. So in summary, let me share the right screen again. We're going to open up for questions though. So if you have questions, go ahead and drop them in the chat, raise your hand. If there's something we didn't cover, we would be more than happy to share information. If there's something real specific, we are here for you. If we don't know the answer, we'll get back.
There are a few in the chat now we could talk about when you're ready.
Oh, are they? I thought we had covered them. Maybe, there's a whole bunch in there. Look at that. Okay.
Q&A. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm still getting used to this part. Okay, so Tracy Stark, a familiar name. Do you supply the barcode labels or templates like you showed? Somebody from the team want to answer that one?
Yes.
I'll call on people. Russ, go ahead.
Yes, we supply those. We order them in million lot quantities from the least expensive supplier that's compliant with the UC purchasing rules, and we do provide those at our cost, essentially.
Yeah, we pass the savings on because we buy in the millions, right? And going back to what Tom said, it allows us to make sure that you will not have a duplicate barcode or label, right? Everything's validated with our system. So it's really for data integrity. We're all about, accurate data. So
the other part of it I wanted to bring up is we improved this last million lot we bought. We improved it adherent. Boy, the glue that attaches them to the bottle. A lot of times you can't glue dust, but even things that weren't dusty, had a little trouble coming off. We got better glue. We improved them so that they're the newer version of the RFID antenna, so they work with all the newest stuff, and they're coated with polyethylene terephthalate, so that you can throw acid on them, you can throw solvent on them, and it doesn't wash off the coating of the barcode.
All right, and we've got Sky here has asked the question, where do we go to buy the barcodes? You know, so when you work with us and our team, if you're interested in our solution, we factor the barcodes into part of that procurement process, right? But we do supply them. But like I said, we pass the savings on to you. Tracy Stark again. Ooh, it's going so fast. Okay, these are great questions. I have to scroll up. Can you use the product barcode okay, product barcode. Russ, do you see that one there to upload?
Yeah,
that?
no, I started typing the answer, decided I'd wait till you got around to it.
Okay. Yeah, I think live answers are better, right?
The answer is no. Different. So among other things, we don't have access to the data from the individual manufacturers to be able to identify what it is from the product barcode. The product barcodes are proprietary. The data in there is in their system, and we don't have access to it. So at this point, we're not. IUPAC's been talking about trying to identify a 2D barcode you put on every container, no matter what the size. It would tell you the contents. It wouldn't tell you the size. But what we do is you can type in the barcode number, the name of the material, the cast numbers, and we have search engines that will help pull those up. So it should be relatively fast. But at this point, we don't have any way to tie into the product barcode on the container. That's the other reason we have our own barcodes, is that if you're using a barcode scanner and you scan the product barcode and you haven't limited what things our system will identify as a barcode, all of a sudden, you know, you're picking up barcodes from everywhere else. And when we use our only barcodes, that's the only string we accept, then it makes it easier to ignore the rest of them. Looks like Tom wants to say something too.
I don't think so, but
Tom, I think you can answer the next one. Ruth had a great question. Is it easy to adjust the quantity of chemical remaining in a container with a barcode?
yeah, so that's a feature you don't even need barcodes for. If you are using barcodes, you can pick it up and type in the number to quickly find whatever that container is, and then just hit the edit button and edit the amount in container.
All right. And then a familiar name, John Palmer. How do you tie chemical inventory to training, SOP, personal protective equipment, et cetera, within our suite? So I didn't even mention that. Our chemical inventory is one of our solutions. We have 40 different solutions within our platform, which includes a chemical SOP, hazard assessment. Russ, do you want to talk a little bit about the SOP directly to the chemical inventory?
Yeah, so the system is set up so you can identify by individual chemical families or by hazard categories or in processes, the SOP that's required for them to be used. And so you can say, here's the SOP I want to use for all flammables. And then you can assign it to people and have them go in, read the SOP and acknowledge it. That's all something that you can have built in right into chemicals. So it's a little more expansive than that. Right now, the PPE is what's on the safety data sheet, if it's listed there, or what it comes out of the lab hazard assessment, and that applies to the group. So we don't have that directly tied to the inventory, but we do have it as part of the suite of tools.
Yeah, most folks do a hazard assessment, have an inventory, and then also get inspections. That's kind of the three core main products that people use together to try to do the basics of lab safety. Rodlin here, we've got, are you giving us the template for the inventory? If I understand this correctly, we have a template that we provide to customers that then allows you to upload it into our system. But it is, I will say, picky, because again, mentioning what Tom had said, it does require an accurate cast number. There's a lot of folks that don't have all the data points. And again, if we want good data out of the system on those reports, it has to be good data in, right? So it will tell you when something doesn't make it into the system, right? It tells you, here's the ones that did, here's the ones that didn't. Tom, do you want to expand on that at all?
Yeah, so the database of chemicals that we have that we're matching on, it does match primarily on cast number. And right now it's only working with single cast numbers. So if it's something that either doesn't have a cast number or has multiples, you'll want to add that in the other manual way that I mentioned earlier by typing it in and choosing from the list. But even when there are things that it's a CAS number that matches multiple listings in our database, you'll have the ability to choose specifically which one. We've got the exact matches where what you typed in to the template exactly matches one hit in the database. We've got the multiple matches, like I just mentioned. And then if there's any errors, like for whatever reason, we don't know what it is, or maybe there might have been a typo. And that reminds me that it is it's a computer that's kind of parsing what you put into an Excel file. So spelling and extra spaces do matter. We try to do what we can, but in the end, it is a computer trying to read what another computer is giving to it. So things do need to be kind of exact there.
All right. And this is probably a good time to mention too, we do maintain our own chemical library. So Russ, do you have a really short version of our library and why we have that? There's just a lot of questions.
Sure. So if you imagine you're getting gas from Mobil or Shell, regular gas is the same, even though there's slight differences in materials, they're all the same stuff. We do the same thing with our inventory. I've got benzene from VWR, from Fisher Scientific. We put it into what we call a chemical family. All the substances that are of the same identical material, or at least from a regulatory standpoint, the same identical material, we put in the same chemical family, and then we track the hazardous properties on the family, and that's what we deliver to users. So if you've got C13 benzene or C12 benzene, regular benzene, you can track those separately. They're going to have the same hazard properties, but from a scientific point of view, you can have separate families based upon the actual material on the substances. So that's the way it's put together. I have a team of chemists that maintain and update the inventory all the time. People give us stuff that we have never seen before. They start using it before we even get a chance to find the safety data sheet and upload it and add the data to the system. And then once we add the data to the system identifies the hazards based upon the data there. That was about as short as I can get, Diana.
I know, Russ, it's okay.
Sorry.
Well, so
I have a quick question for you, Russ.
How can you run a free trial? Oh, do you want to add to that at all, Tom? Sorry, the last question.
I was just going to say, Russ, how many chemicals do you think are in the database right now?
Well, we have about 1.5 million families of chemicals and individual substances. They go from one per family to hundreds. So I don't actually have that answer right now. I will in a few days. We have people working on that.
Okay. And then Stephen, I'm going to let you answer Douglas's question. Can we run a free trial or a trial run?
Yeah, we don't officially have like a trial, but we do have a site that we will ask folks to sign a non-disclosure agreement, but we can allow you a handful of folks to get in there and kick the tires, as it were. We'll help you import some inventory. And I think this is probably a good time. Might be a follow-up question, Doug, and I know the questions are coming in thick and fast, and we'll hopefully get to them all. But I'm going to drop my Calendly link in the chat. So if we don't get to your question, or you want to explore any topic bit further, maybe some other folks want to get into have a look and sort of a trial, click my Calendly, grab 15 minutes. We can hop on a quick Zoom, and we can go from there. So.
Yeah, and same thing if you're somebody who's not using our system, that link works. If you're someone who's using our system, you can still book some time and we'll get the right person there. Thank you. Okay, so Marty, your question was, when can we print HazCom labels, not barcodes, right, from the inventory app?
Not yet. Soon, I hope. When we started the system, we didn't include precautionary statements. And one of the requirements to be GHS compliant is precautionary statements. And we're working with a team to extract those from safety data sheets on a bulk basis. We have an AI that's already really good about extracting it. So I can't say exactly when, but it should be soon. We should be able to allow you to have GHS labels printed. You could do it manually from something like the Avery software and looking at the safety data sheet you can get out of our system, but I can't do it automatically yet.
All right, and our friend Russ from, let's see, Berkeley still, I think. How do you explain, oops, it's moving on me here. How do you explain how best display your lab's inventory list? I get this from people on campus all the time. as chemicals don't display a list of all, it doesn't display a list of all your inventory containers all at once without downloading. Okay, does that make sense? So we want to take that one?
You use the Excel spreadsheet and download the inventory. That's how you look at the whole list. The system right now is intended, you can look at it if you got like 20 things, it'll show up on one page, but otherwise, if you have pages and pages and pages of chemicals, all displayed with all the fancy colors and everything, the simplest way is just to download the Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah, and the desktop's going to give you a better list than a mobile app. I'm assuming you're on the desktop on this one, but
Yeah.
And if you're looking for like per sublocation or per room, if you've got multiple rooms, there is the advanced search to try to narrow it down. And I think actually, I don't think we have that. I was thinking we had an export in that advanced search, but I'm thinking of something else.
all right. Another question from Sohelia. Does your system notify the subject matter expert at the point of ordering? Russ?
No, not right now. So you don't actually order through our system unless you're using the marketplace tool, which is intended for like an on-campus stockroom. Then you can order through there. Then it does notify people. There's notifications involved in there. But if you're using some other tool to order stuff, we don't have a connection to that at this point. Well, we don't have a connection prior to ordering at this point.
Okay, so Elizabeth is asking, when uploading a new container, the expiration date is not required for all chemicals. If the expiration date of a chemical is not critical for the chem who use, do we need to have an expiration date added? If the expiration date is added and the chemical is still active inventory, when the date arrives, will the software require you to remove the container? Are there warnings? Tom, you'd like to answer that one?
Yeah, so once again, it kind of depends on your organization. If your organization wants to require expiration dates for everything, that's completely fine. It's not required just so that you can quickly and easily get a container added in. We didn't want there to be very many barriers to adding things in, and just to make it as easy as possible. If there's a chemical that's classified as a peroxide former, it will give you a warning that you're missing an expiration date. The top bar where the name is listed turns red. And then even on the inventory summary page, there's a little list of container warnings. It'll show up there as well. And even on the container details page where you can type in how much it is and where it is, there'll be a little red kind of warning letting you know that you're missing it if the chemical is classified as a peroxide former. So not required. It is up to you if you want to use them. But some folks do like using them, and I've seen some that completely leave it blank, and that's really just up to their organization.
Okay. Anybody want to add to that, or is that good?
That was great.
Okay. All right, James. Long time no talk. Your question is, can you do control areas and meet NFPA requirements?
So we do control areas. That's part of the MAQ system. The authority having jurisdiction or the fire safety professionals can upload what rooms are in what a control area, what the conditions of the control area are. And we don't track NFPA requirements. California has only adopted a few of the NFPA requirements. And so we don't track NFPA 400, for example. So I'm not sure what you mean by NFPA requirements. We do have the NFPA 704 diamonds available when they're on the safety data sheet. We transfer that information to the app so people can see right away what the app is. And we're working on being able to display that on the door hazard signs, the NFPA diamonds too. So it depends on what NFPA you're talking about.
All right, next question is Elizabeth again, and it's, will there be an option in the future for users, not for those who don't have access to analytics, to download an inventory with a column for expiration dates visible? At this time, it's only accessible by looking up each individual container.
Yeah, that's actually a feature request that I spoke with our product owner about recently, and I believe that we are going to implement that. I don't have an estimate on when.
We will check back and let you know, Elizabeth. All right, it's great. Marty is asking us, can you print SDS from the app? The answer is yes. Russ is shaking his head.
Just
Yes.
said yes.
Yeah,
we
it's true.
do.
It's probably part of it. It's built in to the phone piece, right? If you swipe down and you can do the print. when you're in the actual SDS, at least on an iPhone. I'm sorry, I can't speak to Androids. But
And on both mobile and the desktop version, we do link to any manufacturer's SDS that we use to gather that info. And it just pulls it up in a new tab and you can PDF, print it out, do whatever you'd like with it.
all right, and we got 3 more left in the queue. We're going to go ahead and probably stop after that, so we can just do a quick wrap up. So Raimundo, at university level, how are inventory owners being managed? Do only PIs have can have assigned inventory, or is the system allowing lab members to have the inventory assigned as well? Tom, that might be a good one for you.
Yeah, it can just be like PIs, it could be supervisors. It's kind of up to university discretion for who should be owning them. It makes the most sense to have just the PIs be owning them. We do have what we call a delegate role, which gives the same access as an owner to anybody else, and that can be assigned by that PI or whoever's owner, so that someone else, like maybe a lab manager or whoever it is, can do the same things that the PI can do.
Perfect. Thank you. And let's see, Elizabeth, is there an option for selecting the vendor?
So the system is set up, if you're adding a new container, you can select, obviously not only what's in it, but you can select which substance it is that's on that list that you want to add. So if you've got 10 different vendors that sell the same thing, you pick the one out that is the one that you want. Some of our universities use that extensively, others don't care. So it just depends on what your use case is. But that way you can pick out the right safety data sheet for the right material you have in your family. So yes.
All right. And next question from Alan, in regards to controlled substances as part of the chemical inventory system, is there a way to track the usage of these items in the system so that a record can be made of usage for regulatory compliance?
Kind of. It's not intended to be used for controlled substances. We track the history of inventories and containers in a way that it's possible to get the data back out, but it really is not a controlled substances use authorization. That would be another tool we would need to build to make that happen.
All right, and then last question, Ederbeck, sorry if I say that wrong, but Stephen, would you like to touch that one? Touch on that one?
Yeah, sure. I think maybe Diana covered this, but we built the system for the UC, and then 5-6 years ago now, we had so many other folks coming to us trying to leverage the software, so we made it available. So it is available to other non-UC universities and international universities. And I see you already booked some time, so we can hop on a Zoom call and chat further. And again, extend that. If anyone wants to have a quick 15 minutes with myself or anyone else on the team, please click on the Calendly link and grab 15 minutes with us.
All right, so I appreciate the 62 of you that have stuck on here. I appreciate the interactive questions. That was great. We love when people have are engaged and participating. If there's any additional questions you have, feel free to reach out to the team, to Stephen. In summary, you want a safer environment, you want to identify those hazards. We didn't touch on this much, but you do save a lot of time and a lot of money moving to a more streamlined process. And we just want to say thank you for joining us today. A survey will be coming out, so please be brutally honest. We love to hear your feedback. We're always trying to improve. If you have additional topics you want to hear, please let us know. So thank you. Have a nice rest of your week.